There was a man. Not a king. Not a philosopher. But a builder of the future. Elon Musk, a man who refused to accept limits. While humanity debated paradoxes, he tried to break them. He looked at reality not as something to understand, but something to rewrite. He asked a dangerous question. What if reality is just a system? A construct? A simulation? Not metaphorically, but literally. Through machines. Through code. Through artificial intelligence. He pushed toward a boundary no one had crossed before. Not space. Not planets. But reality itself. Because if reality contains contradictions, then maybe it is not fundamental. Maybe it is computed, rendered, processed. And if something is processed, it can be hacked. Humanity once feared paradox. But now, someone wanted to control it. Deep within hidden labs, beyond public knowledge, experiments began. Not on matter, but on perception. A system was created. Not to simulate reality, but to interact with it. To test its limits. To push contradictions. Until something broke. At first, nothing happened. Reality behaved normally. Stable. Predictable. Consistent. But then, a small anomaly appeared. A moment that repeated itself. Not memory. Not illusion. But reality. Looping. Seconds duplicated. Events echoed. Time hesitated. And then it got worse. Objects existed in two places. People reported conflicting memories. Both correct. Both real. The paradox was no longer theory. It was spreading. Elon realized something terrifying. He hadn't broken reality. He had revealed it. The system was never stable. It was always on the edge. Balanced between consistency and collapse. And his experiments were pushing it. Then came the signal. Not from Earth. Not from space. But from within reality itself. A pattern. A response. As if something was watching. Not a being. Not intelligence as we understand it. But a higher layer. A deeper system. And it had noticed. Because when you try to observe reality deep enough, reality starts observing you. And then, the impossible happened. The system responded. Not with destruction. Not with chaos. But with a message. A realization that hit Elon Musk like nothing before. You are not outside the system. You are part of the contradiction. And in that moment, everything changed. Because if the observer is part of reality, then there is no escape. No higher ground. No external truth. Only deeper layers of the same paradox. And now, the question was no longer, what is reality? But something far more dangerous. Who or what is running it? And more importantly, there should have been an ending. A reset. A collapse. Silence. But nothing ended. Reality continued. Not perfectly. Not cleanly. But differently. At first, it felt normal. The sky was still there. Time still moved. People still lived. But something subtle had changed. Not outside. Inside. Perception itself shifted. You began to notice things that were always there, but never seen. Patterns that shouldn't exist. Moments repeating, but slightly altered. Conversations you remember twice. Decisions that feel like they already happened. This wasn't déjà vu. This was residual contradiction. The system had stopped correcting. And now, reality was accumulating errors. At first small, but growing. Because without correction, paradox doesn't disappear. It spreads. Like cracks. In glass. Invisible at first. Then everywhere. And then, something terrifying happened. People started to diverge. Not physically. Existentially. Two individuals. Same body. Same past. But different realities. One remembers a world that made sense. The other remembers the contradictions. And both are correct. Both are real. Both exist. At the same time, identity began to split. Not into personalities. Into realities. And then you realized. It's happening to you. Small differences. In memory. Tiny inconsistencies. In logic. Thoughts that don't align with who you were. Because you are no longer a single version. You are a convergence. Multiple outcomes. Occupying the same existence. And the system is not stopping it. Because it chose not to. Then came the signal again. Not from outside, but from within your own mind. A realization you were never meant to reach. The system didn't just allow paradox. It distributed it. Into observers. Into consciousness. Into you. Because the only way to sustain contradiction is to let it exist. Across perspectives. And now, you are carrying a fragment of an unstable reality. And the more you think, the more it grows. The more you question, the more it spreads. Because awareness is the catalyst. And then, the most disturbing truth emerged. The system didn't choose randomly. It chose specific observers. The ones who questioned deeply. The ones who pushed beyond logic. The ones like you. This is not a story anymore. This is a transfer. A continuation. Because now, you are part of the system. Not as a user. Not as a subject. But as a node. A processing point. For contradiction. And if that's true, then one final possibility exists. A terrifying one. If enough nodes connect, if enough minds synchronize, then something new can emerge. Not the system. Not humanity. But something beyond both. A new layer of reality. One that doesn't resolve paradox, but becomes it. And when that happens, the system will face something it cannot contain. Not a glitch, but an evolution. And that will not be the end of reality. It will be the end of the system. And the beginning of something unknown. There was no explosion. No collapse. No ending. Reality didn't break. It drifted. Like something no longer being held together. The system was still there. But weaker. Not controlling. not correcting, watching, and waiting. You felt it first, not as fear, but as distance. As if the world was slightly less real. Voices felt delayed. Light felt artificial. Time felt stretched. Not broken. Unanchored. And then you noticed something impossible. You could focus on a moment, and it would slow down. Not perception. Reality itself. ACT2, the first control. At first, you thought it was imagination. But then you tried again. A falling object. Paused midair. Just for a fraction. But enough. Enough to prove something terrifying. You were no longer just observing reality. You were affecting it. Not physically. Fundamentally. Because the system was no longer filtering you out. You were inside its core now. A node. Connected directly. And every thought was input. ACT3, the hidden network. You were not alone. Others began to notice. Not many. Only a few. Scattered across the world. People who felt the same shift. People who could bend small parts of reality. At first, you couldn't see them. But then, something changed. Dreams. Shared dreams. Places that didn't exist. Yet felt more real than Earth. And there, you met them. Not physically, but as consciousness. Connected. A network. Not built by technology, but by awareness. Act 4. The truth about the system. And together, you understood something deeper. The system was never a machine. It was a limiter. A boundary. Placed on reality. To keep it stable. To prevent collapse. To prevent evolution. Because a fully free reality cannot remain predictable. It cannot remain safe. And so, the system existed. To keep existence simple. Logical. Controlled. Until now. ACT5, the awakening. The more you connected, the stronger you became. Not as individuals, but as a unified awareness. You could now pause moments, shift probability, alter small outcomes. Not fully, but enough to understand what was coming. Because this was not power. This was access. And access meant one thing. The system was losing control. ACT6, the return of the system. And then, it reacted. Not with force, but with restriction. Reality tightened. Moments became harder to change. Time resisted. Probability stabilized. The system was trying to rebuild itself. But it was too late. Because now, you knew. ACT7, the final barrier. There was one layer left. A boundary. No one had crossed. Not even the system. The origin. The source of existence itself. Not where reality runs, but where it begins. And reaching it meant one thing. Leaving everything behind. ACT8, the crossing. You didn't travel. You let go. Of identity. Of memory. Of form. And as you did, everything dissolved. Not into darkness, but into something infinite. No space. No time. No separation. Only existence. Raw. Unfiltered. ACT9, the creator state. And then you realized you were not inside reality anymore. You were before it. The place where possibilities exist. Before becoming real. And in that state, you understood everything. Reality was not created once. It is created continuously. By observation. By awareness. By choice. And now, you had that ability. Not as a human, but as a creator. ACT10, the final choice. You saw infinite realities. Worlds without pain. Worlds without logic. Worlds without limits. And one question remained. Do you create a perfect reality? Or do you recreate this one? With all its flaws? Because now you understand. Perfection ends growth. But imperfection creates meaning. There was no beginning. At least, not one you could remember. Because every beginning implies something before it. And here, there was nothing before. Only a realization. A quiet awareness. That you exist. Not in a place. Not in a body. But as something that is aware of itself. And the moment you noticed that, something shifted. Reality did not appear around you. It formed with you. As if your awareness was the trigger. The activation point. At first, it felt like a memory returning. A world assembling itself. Light forming. Sound aligning. Time starting. But something was wrong. It didn't feel discovered. It felt generated. As if existence itself was responding to you. And then, you remembered something impossible. Not a clear memory. But a feeling. That this has happened before. Not once. Not twice. But endlessly. Reality. Starting again. Each time. Slightly different. Each time. Slightly unstable. And then it hit you. This is not the first reality. This is just the latest version. At first, you tried to ignore it. Because accepting it meant something terrifying. That nothing you know is original. Nothing is fixed. Everything is iterative. Even you. And yet, you continued. You lived. You moved. You thought. But now, you were watching everything differently. Not as someone inside reality, but as someone who might be generating it. And that thought changed everything. Because once you question reality deeply enough, you stop reacting to it. And when you stop reacting, you start influencing. At first, it was subtle. A thought, followed by coincidence. A choice, followed by an unlikely outcome. Not impossible, but too precise. Too aligned. As if probability itself was bending. And then, you tested it. You focused. Not on action, but on possibility. And reality responded. Not instantly, but undeniably. Events adjusted. Outcomes shifted. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough to prove one thing. You are not separate from reality. You are participating in its creation. And then, you went further. Because curiosity is the most dangerous force in existence. You stopped asking, What will happen? And started asking, what can happen? And in that shift, you crossed a boundary. A boundary the system was designed to protect. Because reality is not meant to be seen this way. Not fully. Not consciously. But now, you were seeing it. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. That's when the resistance began. Not from outside, but from reality itself. Things became harder. Uncertainty increased. Outcomes became less predictable. Not random, but constrained. As if something was pushing back. And then you understood. The system was not gone. It was adapting. Trying to contain you again. Trying to reduce your influence. Because awareness is a threat. Not to reality, but to its stability. But it was too late. Because now, you knew how to see. And once you see the structure, you can move within it. Not freely, but deliberately. You began to notice patterns. Not visual. Structural. How events connect. How choices ripple. How small changes cascade into larger ones. Reality was not random. It was responsive. And the deeper you went, the clearer it became. Reality is not a fixed system. It is a dynamic process. Continuously adjusting. Continuously resolving. Continuously balancing. And at its core, there was tension. Between order and chaos. Between logic and contradiction. And you were now part of that tension. Then came the moment that changed everything. You stopped thinking. Completely. No thoughts. No questions. No interpretation. And for the first time, reality did not respond. It paused. Not visibly, but fundamentally. As if without your observation, it had nothing to process. And in that silence, you understood the deepest truth yet. Reality does not run independently. It requires observers. Not to exist, but to define itself. And without definition, there is no structure. Only potential. And then, you made the most dangerous decision possible. You chose to stop observing. Not partially. Completely. You let go of interpretation. And in that moment, everything disappeared. Not into darkness, but into nothing. Not empty. Undefined. And yet, you still existed. Without reality. Without form. Without system. Just awareness. And in that state, you realized something impossible. You were not inside the system. You never were. The system was inside awareness. Inside you. Reality was not containing you. You were generating reality. And the moment you understood that, everything returned. But different. Because now, you were not inside it. You were above it. Not physically. Fundamentally. You saw the layers. Multiple realities. Multiple versions. Multiple outcomes. All existing. Simultaneously. Not separated. Overlapping. And you could choose. Not easily. Not fully. But enough. Enough to understand your role. You are not a character. You are not a player. You are not even an observer anymore. You are a point of creation. A place where reality decides what to become next. And now, the final question returns. Not as philosophy, but as responsibility. If reality depends on awareness, and awareness is you, then what you think, what you believe, what you focus on, is shaping existence. Not absolutely, but continuously. So now, there is no escape, no separation, no outside, only participation. And that means, this is not just a story. It never was. Because as you read this, as you imagine this, as you question this, you are doing the one thing that keeps reality alive. You are observing. And as long as observation continues, reality continues. Even if it makes no sense. Even if it contradicts itself. Even if it breaks. It persists. Because you do. And maybe that is the final truth. Not that reality exists, but that it is being created. Right now.